Tom Hanks has established himself firmly in Hollywood as essentially the quintessential American dad. He owes that endearing honorific to his numerous feel-good movie roles and the fact that he genuinely seems like a good guy. As for the fact that he hardly ever plays the antagonist, Hanks has actually touched on this a bit when he explained to the New York Times he's had a lifelong conviction to not instill fear in anyone. He has little desire to be the bad guy, and frankly, nobody would take him seriously in that kind of role anyway. Sure, he's got a lot of mystery in his backstory, but none of it could be classified as malevolent. Still, Hanks' life hasn't been all smooth sailing, and even a cherished star like him has faced his fair share of hardships over the years. From his past romantic relationships to his film flops to an upbringing that wasn't always a walk in the park, come along with us for a little retrospective into the somewhat tragic real-life story of Tom Hanks. Hanks had a troubled childhood. Tom Hanks came into the world July 9, 1956 in Concord, California. He was born Thomas Jeffrey Hanks. His mother had a job at the local hospital, while his dad was an itinerant cook who did the best he could with what little he had to provide for his family. Hanks has spoken frankly about his childhood on multiple occasions, pointing out it wasn't exactly ideal. According to an interview with the New York Times, he grew up in Northern California during a time that the Zodiac Killer was terrorizing the nation, and monumental social movements like the People's Park riots were causing people to question the status quo. His father often worked long hours to put food on the table and keep the electricity on, but as such, his children were often left to their own devices on the home front. Tom told the Times there were a bunch of things he wasn't taught how to do when he was a kid. No one was there to tell him how to brush his teeth, and he didn't even know what flossing was until he was past high school. Although he missed out on crucial life lessons when he was a child, he still managed to come out of his formative years relatively well adjusted. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you give it a like, and subscribe to Facts Verse if you haven't already. And stick around to see why Hanks' first marriage ended up falling apart. His parents split when he was young. Tom Hanks' parents filed for divorce when he was a young child. His brother ended up going off to live with his mother while Tom went to live with his dad. Hanks has 3 siblings. He has 2 brothers named Jim and Larry and 1 sister named Sandra. Both of his parents eventually remarried 2 different times apiece, so Tom is actually number 9 in an extended family of 16 siblings and half-siblings. By the time he was 10, Tom had already lived in 10 different homes. He told the BBC his upbringing left him and his siblings perpetually in a state of confusion. They were essentially left blind to the details of their ever-changing home life with little clarification. Tom's first marriage also ended in divorce. Hanks has been happily married to his wife, Rita Wilson, since 1988. A lot of fans forget about the fact that he was once married before. In 1978, he and his ex, Samantha Lewis, tied the knot and ended up having 2 children together. They welcomed a son, Colin, into the world in 1977, whom, as you're probably aware, ended up following in his father's footsteps by also becoming an accomplished actor. They also had a daughter they named Elizabeth in 1982. The couple dissolved their marriage after struggling through years of poor communication in 1987, although they had already separated 3 years prior. Tom ended up remarrying just 1 year later. He told GQ his feelings for his second wife, Rita, grew a lot quicker than he expected. They grew close while on the set of the 1985 film Volunteers, and sparks flew. He had previously worked with her on the sitcom Bosom Buddies in 1981. Touching on his first failed marriage, Hanks admitted he was searching for something in that relationship that he had missed out on as a child. A broken marriage meant he was essentially sentencing his own children to the same kinds of feelings and heartbreak he had experienced. And that realization brought a heaviness to his heart that was difficult for him to reconcile with. He was much too young, insecure, and idealistic for marriage at the time. Samantha Lewis died of cancer. Tom's marriage to Samantha Lewis might not have ended up as a happy ending, but that doesn't mean he didn't care for her. They were college sweethearts and shared a lot of firsts together. She was also an actress who had already amassed quite a few credits on TV, and when they got divorced in 1987, they continued to co-parent their kids. Both Tom and Samantha knew their children deserved to have both of their parents in their lives, and they didn't want to leave them high and dry. Sadly, in 2001, it came to light that Lewis, who was born Susan Dillingham, was dying from an aggressive form of bone cancer that was already spreading throughout her body. When Tom heard the news, he was devastated. Even though he and his ex-wife had split a long time ago, they still cared about each other very deeply. Susan died March 12, 2002 in Sacramento, California. Tom Hanks' directorial debut was a flop. Having directed a slew of TV episodes already, Tom decided it was finally time to branch out to the big screen to try his hand out as a movie writer and director from the 1996 film That Thing You Do. The movie centered around a band in the 1960s and chronicled their journey of becoming an overnight success after recording a one-hit wonder. But the film failed to impress at the box office. It wasn't a complete loss. The film had a budget of $26 million, which was pretty hefty for that period, but it still managed to pull in a profit, $34.5 million. Not the best return in the history of film, but not the worst. But despite not being a major success in terms of initial numbers, Hanks' directorial debut has still lured in quite a few new fans in the years since its release. In 2020, the actors who contributed their talents for the film's fictional band The Wonders reunited for an exclusive That Thing You Do watch party to help raise funds and awareness for the MusiCares COVID-19 Relief Fund. The stars of the movie have nothing but words of praise to say about their experience in the movie. Actor Steve Zahn gave an interview with Entertainment Weekly where he noted that even though it was technically the first time Hanks had directed, at that point he had been working in the industry for so long, he already had a keen grasp of how things worked on many levels. Tom Hanks offered refunds to disappointed fans. While most of his films have been critical and box office successes, he, like any other actor, has had a few duds. He followed up his directorial debut, That Thing You Do, with the 2011 film Larry Crowne, which he also co-wrote and starred in. Even though Larry Crowne seemed to have everything going for it on paper, with all the makings of being a hit rom-com with Hanks and Julia Roberts in the leading roles, a lot of people who went to theaters to see it felt pretty disappointed. And even though it had to have been frustrating to have his pet project met with such lackluster reviews, Hanks showed off his gentlemanly nature by how he responded. The National Enquirer reported that after two fans confronted Hanks at a gas station in LA after recently seeing Larry Crowne, Hanks asked for their honest opinion, and no doubt he probably regretted it, because they responded by informing him they found it lacking in many regards. It wasn't that good, they said, but instead of letting that get him down, Hanks offered his sincerest of apologies and even offered to refund their ticket money to make it right. So even after receiving a damning critique of his work, Hanks was still nothing short of polite, a quality that makes us love him that much more. Now it's time to hear from you. What's your favorite Tom Hanks movie? Let us know in the comments section below, and before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.